Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I'm your host, Ron Dichter. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a departure from our normal, and I'm just going to talk about something that I dealt with this morning in my own company and see if it helps. So, if you're watching this video live, you are catching it right after Christmas and just before New Year's 2025. And I had a meeting this morning with my sales team at Sixpack, my software company, and they were talking about how they're getting a lot of objections about call me next year. And, these are pretty rudimentary objections, time delays. But it got me thinking about entrepreneurs that may be wearing many hats, that maybe, don't always play the sales game and sometimes are, fixated on the product or the operations or onboarding support, whatever it is side, and don't really get into the weeds of sales. But I thought today, since it is at the end of the year, it would be worthy for me to talk a little bit about objections and specifically time delay objections, because this is something that is not unique to me. Everybody in any business is dealing with this, and no matter what you sell, whether it's a physical product to consumers or a software to businesses, we're all hearing these objections of time delays. And the interesting thing about time delays is that it's very circuitous and it doesn't end. So you really have to understand why people are telling you, to call me at a later time and how to overcome that. So first and foremost, let's just talk about the common delays. So since it is the end of the year and people are going to be saying, call me after the first of the year, in essence, they're trying to kick it into the new year. They're really busy trying to close out their existing year, and they don't want to think about it until next year. Okay, that sounds fair enough. However, when you call them in January, what they're going to tell you is that they're closing out their books. Can you call them in February because they're closing out their books on January 30th? And they need to get everything done for their accountant, bookkeeper, whatever it is, size of the company. Then you call them in February, and the next thing that you're going to hear is, oh, we're trying to do tax stuff for the prior year. We're trying to make sure that we have all of our W-2s, all of our 1099s, try to make sure that we have all of our roll-ups, whatever they're doing on their accounting side. And they're going to say, can you call me after tax season? So now you're into April. And then you call them in April, and they say, oh my gosh, it's crazy right now, dealing with the kids trying to finish school, just a lot going on right now. Can you call me the summer when, the kids are out of school, I'll have more time? And then you call them in the summer, and in the summer, they're going to tell you, oh my gosh, kids are out of school. It's crazy. We're doing family vacations. Can you call me when the kids go back to school? It's just too busy right now. Then you call them in September. And in September, they say, oh my gosh, it's crazy with back to school, getting the kids situated, in their new grades, and if they're into college and their new living situation, can you call me in a month or so just because it's getting just too crazy? Then you call them in October, and they're like, oh my gosh, Thanksgiving is coming up, the holidays are coming up, I just don't have time to deal with this. This is our busy time right now. Can you call me after Christmas? And then you call them after Christmas, and you're right back to where you started in that same circuitous cycle of time delays. So how do you overcome this? Like, what's the best way to navigate through this? Well, first and foremost, tell people that and explain to them, that, there's never a good time, and being able to carve out, time now, and, whether it be rolling things out quickly or rolling things out slowly, like you'll work around their schedule. But until we get the ball rolling, we can't really work around any schedule. And so I think getting them to commit, again, depending on what you're selling, and how long it takes to, whether it's cash and carry or whether it's something that requires an onboarding, trying to get them to just commit to that first step. Then the second thing is just really making sure that they understand, again, that whatever it is you're delivering, that can be done in a way, that the heavy lift is on your side. And again, maybe that's not the case in your business, but for the most part, just making them feel comfortable that the, undertaking that they think it is going to be far less. If it comes to finances and they want to kick the can into a different budget quarter or year, you can always do that, and you can always get the commitment, but post date it for a later time frame. And then obviously you have their commitment and you're just waiting to submit it at the appropriate time. But calling people out on these objections and just simply saying, look, like, I understand now's not a good time, but guess what? If I call you in January, you're going to tell me you're busy closing out books. And if I call you after you close out books, you're going to tell me you're busy in taxes. And if you just tell them the cycles that you're going to hear, then I think you can overcome, or at least get them to the point where they understand that this, fabricated time delay objection is probably not necessarily, the reason they're saying no. What they're really trying to tell you is no, or they're trying to come up with some other reason. And that's what you really need to get out of them, is figure out what the real objection is. Because if it's just a time delay objection, you'll be able to overcome that. But if it's more than that, that's really what you're trying to unpack here, so that you can then answer the real objection and get past this time delay objection. Anyway, for those of you not in sales, I hope you find this helpful. For those of you that are in sales, you've probably heard this time and time again. But thanks for tuning in, and good luck as you close out 2025. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.